Hey there, Dennis. Do you copy me?
Sorry?
You copy me?
I hear you, Steve.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I tried to get on and it wasn't in my calendar when I thought it was, because it was a few days ago.
Yeah, it went out on Friday, and I usually get that reminder one. I didn't see that one.
I'm on now, so I guess everything's okay. Hi, Mike.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Closer.
Where are you, Mike? You in Germany?
Yeah, I'm in Hamburg, Germany here at midnight. So good morning.
I need some sleep tomorrow.
Guten Tag.
Danke.
You speak the language, Mike?
Not well. No, I've tried and they speak better English than I do. So I just let them move on with that usually. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hey, Jeff. How's Canada?
Oh. The Queen died. Did you know that?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, so we had to stop. We had to stop doing everything. Queen died. Too many live events, too many things going on. So we stopped what's going on. I finished up what I needed to do. The next week we were going to do it, but a storm came through. That big storm came through up in Montreal as well. And a brand new building, beautiful place, CBC Montreal. They found out that the roof leaks, not just anywhere, but in the server room.
Oh, of course.
Nowhere else but there.
They knew you were coming.
Yeah, so that was so now it's done, and they have their elections the beginning of next month. So they are no touch at this point.
Hey guys, joining the call without video. I'm traveling still, and I'm back to the house.
Okay. Lori, are you bored? I know you said you were going to.
I'm here. Yep, I'm here, but also joining without video because I'm traveling.
Okay. We do have a quorum. I know looks like we have a busy night, so I'd like to get going. Jeff, could you do the pledge for us? Start the
I
pledge.
sure can. Jeff Mangels, that would be. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Let's do a roll call, make it easier for, I assume the stenographer for Telesco is on board. Is that true? I don't hear anyone.
Let's see who's on here.
Who is snownetroo@gmail.com?
Sorry, Al?
Who is snowyo.netroo?
I have no idea.
SNOWY.
Recording secretary.
Now it's a recording secretary. So there you go.
Okay. If you unmute yourself. Thank you. So I'm Dennis Santella, the chairman. If we can get the commissioners done first, and then we can go to the other people.
Alan Kibbe,
Chris McDonald.
Jeff Mangels.
Lori Jones.
Mike Matthews.
Matt Gifford.
I think we're missing two people. Jeff is going to be a little late, but he's not a commissioner anyway.
I'm Adam Blank. I don't know if you're looking for me to say hello. I'm here on the Cemetery Street application. I'm the lawyer.
Okay, yeah, we're just doing a roll call right now, Adam.
Sure.
Joe? Go ahead, Joe. Shoreline.
Joe Schnierline, Mayor's Water Quality Committee.
Bruce,
Bruce Lavallo, Harbor Master.
Steve,
Steve Bardish, Norwalk Shellfish Commission.
who we missing? Anybody aboard that we're missing? All right, I guess that's it for now. We could add to it as we go along. Application and review. Chris, I guess you're going to take the wheel
Yes.
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, John asked me to just take over the agenda. So the first agenda item, I believe this is incorrect because the file that was sent out was incorrect, mislabeled. I don't believe it's the application was for 3 Sea Breeze. I'm just going to pull it up real quick so I can refresh my memory here. 3 Sea Breeze Place with the applicant Joseph Limone, and the rest of the text is correct. Mr. Limone proposes to construct a 4-foot by 60-foot pile supported timber pier, 42-inch by 36-inch aluminum ramp, and an 8-foot by 20-foot piling anchored timber floating dock for private recreational small boat launching and landing. Do you have anybody representing the applicant on the call?
Chris, it's Amelia. It does look like there is someone who's an attendee, so I'm going to promote them to a panelist and let them talk. And you are correct. The original agenda that went out did have that mislabeled. That property is 72 Shorefront Park.
Yeah, so it's actually 3 Sea Breeze.
I believe it's John Hiltz that
Yes, I think it's John Hiltz too. So he's now a panelist. He should be able to speak.
Hello. Hi, John.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Jeff, what are you doing in Canada?
I was installing new playout systems for broadcast CBC
Oh,
Montreal.
my daughter's in Montreal.
Oh, really? She flew in French.
Actually, she is.
Yeah, I'm not. So there you go.
Next time you go, let me know. Very good. Questions about the dock. Basically, this is the same dock as the neighbors have. It's a pile supported pier coming off the seawall. A ramp down to a floating dock that'll be anchored by 4 pilings. There'll be float stops to keep the float off the bottom 18 inches. There's a bit of stone right at the northern property boundary. It's been there for a while. We propose to remove some of it from an area that can support wetland vegetation. In consultation with Sue Jacobson at Connecticut DEP, she looked at the photographs that accompanied my submittal to them, and she said, "Are those stones? Are they wood?" I said, "They're actually like cut sandstone pieces." She says, "Those have got to go." I said, "Not a problem." So we're going to remove basically some, there's about 4 pieces of cut sandstone there. Again, they were there for a long time. I kind of recall them from when I did the adjacent dock. Those will be going away. And again, the whole issue of stone will be shortened so that it doesn't extend into the wetlands.
Okay. I had one. I'm gonna put up your application. Let's see.
Sure.
Share screen. Shoot, oh, there it is. It's taking me. one thing I noticed that we don't have the low water line marked on, we have the mean high water line.
If you look at the note on the plan, low water line is about 300 feet off the wall, I believe.
Okay,
And there's an extensive mud flat there.
okay. So, I think what we've done in other situations like this is that the boat, boats aren't allowed to be at the dock through a low tide cycle.
Yeah. This is more of like a kayak type launching thing. I don't think the owner hasn't expressed any desire to like put a power boat or anything there. It's not a good spot for that. They basically need to go up and over the wetland vegetation in order to get out. Right now, they're cutting through it, with some kayaks, and they don't want to do that anymore. So.
Right. Okay. Does Shellfish have any issue with these, the mud flats around here? So this area it's Shorefront Park. Is that Shorefront Park?
No, it's south of Shorefront Park. Seabreeze is kind of,
Harbor Shore.
That
Harbor Shore
line that used to go between Harborview and and basically South Norwalk. There's like a bridge there that isn't there anymore.
Right, the Neptune Street.
North of that inlet.
Right.
Yeah.
Harbor Shores, I think they call themselves there. All right.
Steve's.
Does anybody else have any?
Steve's on the.
Yeah, I am. So, I mean, I can't speak for the full commission, but I would assume that we'd like to see the property.
Sure. No, it's mud there, Steve, just so you know. But I mean, by all means, if you guys need to go out there, please do so.
Thanks as always, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, did anybody else have any other comments or questions? All right. So should we make a motion that this is this a pre-application or an application?
Pre-application.
Pre-application.
Consultation at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
So somebody help me with the wording here. We usually say something to the effect that it's we have no objection to the application being submitted. Is Jeff Stedman on? He usually crafts the language for us.
Chris, do we say it's consistent with the harbor management plan or not for pre-application? I'm not sure.
I think we say that when it's an application. And not the pre-application.
Okay, so maybe the wording is that we have no issues with it. And then I think we still have reserved the right to comment once the final application comes through, I think.
Yes. So we think we usually say that we have no objection to the application moving forward with the.
Jeff just joined the meeting.
Yeah, don't we usually also say consistent with the harbor management plan? We don't see any
Correct.
issues. However, we hold the reserve judgment for the final application.
Hey, Jeff, are you there?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. And John Crespo he's stuck in traffic, and John Pinto is trying to finish up a lecture. Well, you know that, Chris.
Yeah.
So
yep. So we just discussed the 3 Seabreeze application, pre-application. We don't have any objections. We're just trying to remember the language that you usually craft for us. We do for a pre-application. We usually just say that we have no objection to it going forward with the,
we have no objection
reserving the right to comment further.
Yes, no objection to the pre-application plans being included in a permit application, and reserve the right to review it as the review process continues.
Right. Okay. And we We don't say it's consistent until we've seen the full application, right?
No, and just to take, the reason for that was some years ago in another town, a commission found a pre-application to be consistent with the plan. It eventually went to a public hearing and the commission found was aware of additional information and attempted to make a finding of inconsistency. And the attorney for the applicant said they couldn't do it because based on land use law, the application hadn't changed since they looked at it in the pre-application phase. And the town attorney at that other town and also the city attorney at the time in Norwalk recommended to avoid that situation, that unless it's a project of our own, that you always find that have no objection to it moving forward. So that's
Okay.
the background of that.
All right, so I'll make the motion that the 3 Seabreeze application, we have no objection to moving forward and reserve the right to comment on the application.
I'll second that. Jeff Mangles.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposition? Okay. The next.
Can I
agenda-
interrupt? Can I interrupt for a
Yes, go ahead.
second? Sergeant Basigli doesn't have access. He can't get unmuted.
I got it, Bruce. I was using the wrong link. I'm in now.
Gotcha. Sorry.
I'm Sergeant Passek. I took over the Marine unit for Pete in September. So
Great. Okay, the next agenda item is a.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's where is it? It is the DEP. Oh, yeah. So previously, we reviewed the One Cemetery Street Cam application from Mill Pond Holdings, and I don't remember exactly how we voted on that, but we've now received a letter from DEEP that I hope it's fairly long, so I don't think I'm gonna reread it here, but I wanted to try to understand what they're looking from us for it. So this is from the
Jeff,
the
you
land-
have some information, Jeff, on that, don't you?
Yeah, do you have some background on
Jeff.
this, Jeff?
Yes, when we looked at this, the commission's initial comment was to have no objection to it, but we did not write a letter because we reserve the right to review whatever comments Deep may have on this. And then we since received the comments from Deep. And so this is Deep responding, not as the, the coastal regulatory agency, such as in the previous application with a permit, but in terms of commenting on the consistency of a land use proposal with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. So they've raised several issues. One being that this is a tidal water body and therefore subject to the Coastal Management Act's water dependent policies. So that a development application consideration would have to be given to a water dependent use, which could include public access. So Deep was stating that there should be public access provided with this. And as we knew from the applicant's presentation, they were not providing public access, but they were showing on the adjoining city-owned wetland property that there would be a possibility for future public access. And I believe Deep was also saying in their response that this piece of property, which is mostly below the coastal jurisdiction line, was part of a proposed wetland restoration or coastal restoration project some years ago, back in the 1990s. The other thing that they brought up was that, again, what we talked about it is the increased residential density in the coastal floodplain. And when we looked at this last month, the attorney or the representatives, as I recall, stated that the proposed residential density of 77 units was something that was allowed as of right in by the existing zoning regulations. So therefore, we thought that, well, then they're not really proposing what they otherwise could build there. But Deep's letter indicates a little bit more of a nuance to this, that it's not as of right. They have a right to apply for increased residential density through a special permit, if I was reading Deep's comments correctly. So that their comments had to do with the need to provide some sort of public access to meet the water dependent use criteria, and then also to address Deep's policy that increasing residential density in the coastal floodplain is inconsistent with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. So I'm still not sure when the public hearing is going to be for this and whether there's an opportunity for us to get more information. But my thought is the Harbor Management Plan supports the implementation of the Coastal Management Act. And if Deep has issues with this, a possible response from the commission is to say that we cannot make a favorable recommendation until these comments from Deep are addressed to the satisfaction of Deep and other involved agencies. But that's what I know. And then, as you know, this. Well, I'll stop talking. I'm sorry to go on so long.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Jeff.
Excuse me, Chris, was Deep's letter distributed to the commission? Do we all have that, or it's news to me?
Okay.
It was attached to Dr. Pinto's. It was attached to Dr. Pinto's email to us.
Yeah. Yes, I assume that went to everybody. I did that. I know I got it from Dr. Pinto. I don't know if Lori got it, then everybody should have gotten it.
Yes, I got one.
Okay.
So I could read the letter if you wish. But
it's pretty long. That's why I didn't just go straight into doing that. I put it up here. So I highlighted some of this the part down, the highlighted paragraph down here with the highlights in it is the part about the public access. I mean, there's a little bit of a preamble there. Paragraph above it is where they talk about how they put some money into creating, I don't know exactly what they put money into. They did something in the 90s to improve the access in the waterfront there. But this is, I try to highlight what they're actually, what they're sort of requesting here. So in order to, I'll just read this paragraph because I think it's the most pertinent about access. In order to satisfy the CCMA coastal management something water dependent use criteria, the proposal on the subject site itself should be modified and or conditions to mitigate the adverse impacts to future water dependent uses consistent with the applicable goals and policies of the Coastal Management Act. Publicly available elements, by example, the courtyard and pollinator garden areas on the subject site could be revised and clearly labeled as public access with such amenities at a scale commensurate with the significant amount of development at a small site. All publicly available areas must be deed restricted for public use in perpetuity with a public easement walkway from Cemetery Street. Also, we recommend 2 public parking spaces and public access signage displayed along Cemetery Street. So one of the things part of the waterfront access they were sort of incorporated into their plan was actually on city property, which is, I think, slightly separated from by water itself. So they're saying that that they need to actually provide satisfy the water dependent use criteria on their own property and have access for it and that be established in their deeds. And then the next part, when they talk about the zoning and the density things, I honestly, I read it and I didn't totally follow that. They seem to go back and forth on what, from one unit for how many square feet to and it got changed to be more dense. So here's their recommendation. We recommend that any increase in the allowable density of this to this in the FEMA zone only occur in areas outside of this zone and in keeping with allowing
That's the Connecticut Coastal Management Act acronym, Chris.
right. Yeah. So I'm trying allowing increased density when the flood zone is a risk, et cetera. So what are they? They're recommending. So they're recommending that the density only be allowed in the AE 14 zone or outside of the AE 14 zone.
Well, they're talking about they're expressing concern about the increased residential density in the coastal floodplain. They're talking about applying for a FEMA map amendment to modify the flood zone line. But if
Right.
you go back up to the previous page, Chris, if you don't mind, and I'm sorry to
Sure.
be given directions.
No, this is complicated.
Under coastal flood hazard area, the applicant seeks a special permit. And if granted, this special permit would allow for increase in allowable density beyond the as of right use. And that was the difference when we looked at this last month. It was our understanding that as of right, they could build what they were proposing to do. And now what this means is they have a right to apply for increasing the allowable density, which is sort of like saying we have a right to dredge when you really have a right to apply for a permit to dredge. I mean, it's a different thing, I know, but and
Sure.
this has implications in other waterfront properties too, with the waterfront rezoning initiative that's ongoing now with planning and zoning. So Deep has been fairly consistent in terms of objecting to increasing the residential density in the coastal floodplain unless certain criteria are met. And that's why I think we have to be careful, in my opinion, of making a favorable recommendation on this if it's increasing the allowable density, and then we set a precedent for other sites, including on the Water Street side, where the flood elevation is 6 feet above the street and above the ground.
Yeah.
I think that we should have the benefit of seeing a response to these comments, and that our opinion should, well, this is just my suggestion, should be that absent addressing these comments to the satisfaction of Deep, or making it clear that there's some extenuating circumstances, the commission's recommendation could not make a favorable recommendation, but recommend that these comments be addressed before any decision is made. That's just my thought.
That makes sense, Jeff.
Am I able to be heard for the applicant?
Yes.
So good evening, Adam Blank, live here in Norwalk, the attorney for the developers over at 1 Cemetery Street. And I want to sort of hopefully address some of your sort of substantive concerns, and I think hopefully also clear up, I think maybe some language differences that may or may not be substantive to you, and some procedural differences of sort of opinion. So we were here a month or two back. You did make a finding that it was consistent with the harbor management plan with a favorable report back to planning and zoning, which was conditioned on you having the opportunity to make additional comment after receiving the Deep report. So that is, and I think that's reflected in your minutes from the meeting as well. The Deep report, I guess it stated September 20th. I received it sometime this afternoon, and I was the only one on our development side that received it. And that was only after getting notice that we were on an agenda and getting the Zoom link this afternoon. So we had no notice up until noon today that Deep had issued a report or that you were going to consider this again this evening. Notwithstanding the limited time, we did try to cobble together some responses, and this is sort of a boilerplate. I mean, we've seen this from Deep in the last year or two on most of the developments in Norwalk, whether it's single family or larger. When So, and I want to sort of substantively address some of those points. First, you know, when they talk about public access, if I'm able to share my screen, if somebody can
Yeah,
unshare.
yes,
is that
I
right?
will, yes, I will stop sharing, stop share. There it is. Okay, should be
So,
okay.
okay. So right, you all know where the property is. My screen's up, right?
Yes,
Okay, so here's where we are, and this is the part that fronts the tidal pond, mill pond. We had previously come and we probably weren't clear, and there have been some revisions to the plans. Again, we haven't actually revised the drawings yet. We're still waiting on final word back from DOT with respect to the traffic flow here to get things finalized. But just to be very, very clear, what we are proposing is deeded public access from East Avenue along our site, coming down along our site, moving down towards the water. Now, right now, this is a landlocked parcel from the city. We've never proposed to do improvements on it. We've proposed that the city could apply and could do some improvements. But right now, the city can't do anything with that piece of land. Whether Deep thinks that the city could or should do something with the land, essentially, we don't really care. But we think it's a benefit to the city to have access to, at some point in the future, if they want to make some water dependent use, whether it's just for site and for access or for something other than that, we're willing to give that deeded right. And if it's meaningless, so be it, but we're willing to do that. Additionally, we've agreed to take what was going to be this overlook here on the side of the building with the rain garden, then closer to the water, with some comments we've got back from the Planning and Zoning Commission as well as Deep. We'd agreed that we are going to bump our sort of public access walk out closer to Mill Pond and put the rain garden behind it so that there's better public access to Mill Pond. Again, deeded public access. That deeded public access and the easement, the law department I think has a copy of the proposed easement. I mean, it's drafted, we've submitted it, would then extend up to our parking area here so that there would be public access. We have no objection to putting a sign up on Cemetery about there being public access. Currently, there's no public parking. Public can't access there. There's no public access currently at all. We're proposing it's about 14 on-street spaces that would be open to the public at all hours, right? That's public parking that would be new and obviously open to the public, which was a concern raised by Deep. We also are looking at providing down here potentially 2 additional spaces on top of the public ones that there would be sort of shared, it would be public access during certain hours of the day, which we're trying to work out when that would be. Likely that's like the 9 to 5 hours, the daytime hours, which is when the public access would be there for the public to park and be closer to the walking path here. So I think that what we've already proposed really addresses the public access concerns raised by Deep. We're not going to do improvements on the city parcel. So this, again, that sort of doesn't matter. Deep's comments about that, they may be relevant for what the city can do in the future, but we're not proposing to impede or infringe on anything that the city may have as an agreement already with Deep. The other part was about whether our development complies with it's really Deep's fact sheet. They have a fact sheet for coastal hazard areas, which their official policy is that high density residential types in A zones is permissible if access to the site is not flood prone and the applicant can demonstrate the project has been designed so that risks to life and property are not increased. And that's the substance of what Marcy was talking about in her September 20th letter. That's the official policy of Deep. When it comes to density, so I want to clarify, because I don't think it's fair to us to say that like we're filing a permit, we're asking to do something that we're not allowed to do as of right. right? Anytime that you want to build anything in Norwalk, you have to file a permit, right? You're not able to just go out and with your shovel and your 2x4s and start building, right? So yes, we do have to ask permission. Yes, we have to file an application. Under the existing zoning regulations, and this is what I apologize if I wasn't clear about it before, we are not asking for any changes to the zoning regulations in Norwalk. We're asking to build what's allowed to be built under the existing regulations. It is a special permit application. It is not a site plan application. I don't think we ever represented that, but if we weren't clear about it, again, I apologize. This is a special permit application to build density that is allowed under the zone. The way the density works in this particular zone is there's a base density. And when you build a rain garden, when you have a pollinator garden, when you provide courtyards, when you add solar, and we've got a lot of solar on the roof, by taking certain steps, the allowed density in the zone changes. We are not asking the city to make exceptions for us. We're not asking for a variance. We're not asking for anything special. We're just saying, if you look at the regulations and you check the boxes that are there, A, B, C, and D, it tells you exactly what the density that's allowed. And we're not even meeting the density that's permissible. We could do more under the existing regulations. The structures that we're proposing, so one of them, this one is the smaller one, that is in the AE zone, and that's our lower density structure. It's a smaller building, it's lower density, there's not many units in it. The larger density, a large part of it's in the X zone. It's not even in the A zone, which is what matters for Deep's comments. Of our first floor space, we think there's, and I'm roughing it out again. I wasn't even able to speak with the engineer today, but our first floor space is about 30,000 square feet across the site. Of that 30,000 square feet, about 8,000 of it is going to be at the base flood elevation +1. It's about 15 feet. The other 22,000 is going to be at roughly 24-foot elevation. Remember, Cemetery Street is much higher than Mill Pond. So most of the development, even the first floor, your base flood, is going to be at 24, not at 14 and not at 15. And because Cemetery is so far above in elevation, Mill Pond, you don't have flooding. It's the Cemetery and East Ave here are not flood prone to access our site. So under Deep's policies, these would have to be flood prone for there to be an issue, or we'd have to be building it out of compliance with FEMA. We're not, and we're far exceeding the FEMA standards for most of the first floor of the structure. And anecdotally, I will tell you that the bank that's there now is 12 foot is the elevation. It's not raised. They had no flooding in Sandy. They had no flooding in Irene. They've had no flooding at that bank. And that's without being raised. So I think that we sort of meet Deep's requests with respect to public access, with respect to public parking. We are not proposing improvements on the city property, which was problematic for Deep. We are compliant with the zoning regs. It's not on a flood prone like access to the site. And because the base flood elevation is going to meet FEMA and exceed it in most of the locations on the site, we think that satisfies the other concerns raised by Deep. I mean, Deep's overarching, I'll say, message on every project that's occurred is that essentially they'd rather there not be building, right? They'd rather they're not. And we're never going to get Deep to agree that we're not going to build, right? I mean, so I think it would be unrealistic for you to expect us or to try to require us to give Deep oversight over our project where they have none. They can comment, which is what they've done, but you're the ones that make the decision as to whether or not it complies with your coastal management, the harbor management plan, which you've already said it does. I think it does. I think we've met Deep's concerns, and that we hope that you'll simply find that you don't need to make any additional comment tonight to your prior action. Thank you.
Excuse me, Adam,
Yes, sir.
will you be responding to Deep's comments? I assume you will be.
We will, although we typically respond to them either to you if you have concerns that have been raised, or to the zoning commission, and not in a back and forth with Deep directly.
Okay, I was just going to suggest that you send us a copy of your comments, but if that's not the routine, then we'll figure something out.
No, I mean, if there's something that we don't understand, or the zoning staff has said, hey, you know, we've got a real concern over this, or a real issue over this, or can you get some clarification from Marcy as to what she's looking for? Obviously, you know, we would, but I think these kinds of comments are not going to surprise the zoning office, and so they're not going to ask us to go back to Deep. They won't. If you want us to write to them, we can write to them.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I just wasn't sure what your thrust was.
Sure.
Right. Yeah, the comments were addressed to us, not to the developer.
The comments were addressed to planning and zoning, and we received a copy of them from Deep.
Oh, zoning commission. All right, right.
My question is, yes, as Dennis said, would there be a formal response to planning and zoning in response to Deep's comments? And then the second question is, when has a public hearing been scheduled on this yet?
So a public hearing has not been scheduled. It's still sort of contingent, and we've talked to them about getting it scheduled, but it's not scheduled until DOT finishes their review of the traffic and the roadway improvements, which we don't control the timing on that. We're sort of at their mercy, and we've been prodding them, but so far without success. So we don't have a public hearing date scheduled. And
in that case, perhaps the commission's proper response would be to receive the formal response from the applicant to planning and zoning in response to Deep's comments. And since a public hearing has not been scheduled, we'd have the formal response and could discuss it next month. Then we would have something written that's part of the application.
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
The finding of consistency, as I recall, as Attorney Blank said, we did talk about the consistency of the project because of the substantial stormwater management improvements. But we didn't talk about we mentioned that there was a potential floodplain issue, and that and then we heard this other public access issue. But would you be amending any of the plans that you've submitted to show what you're talking about with the public access, or still submitting the easement, or are you just leaving your initial submittal intact and just?
So our initial submittal includes the public access in the easement, and it is absolutely going to be a requirement of any approval if the project is approved from planning and zoning. So that's not going to change, but there will be some changes to the landscape plan to show that the public access has been moved closer to Mill Pond than was originally shown. And there may be some changes there's an architectural review on this from a peer architect that's ongoing. There may be some tweaks to the architecturals based on DOT. There may be some tweaks to the site plan. I don't expect anything substantial, but I'm not going to tell you that what's been submitted, that there's not going to be anything changed from that in the quote final documents.
Well, again, at the risk of talking too much, my thought is that because of the floodplain issue and its potential relevance to other properties along the waterfront, that we could anticipate seeing development proposals or rezoning proposals in the future, that we want to make sure we understand these floodplain management issues having to do with residential density. And therefore, again, not submit a formal comment at this time, but since there's no pending public hearing, await reviewing what the applicant submits in response to Deep's comments, and then take that up at the next meeting. But that, again, that's just my thought.
Yeah, I would like to hear how planning and zoning interprets this, and, you know, are the, you know, have they already, you know, are they applying for a change in density, or as you know, as Mr. Blank said there, that they basically already earned it, they've already earned it under the zoning code by mitigating and doing other things. And then I'm still trying to figure out whether they're saying that they shouldn't have any structures in the FEMA, in the AE 14 zone, or.
My, you know, again, meager experience with some other towns is that Deep has been forceful in responding to similar projects that would involve multifamily development in the floodplain by saying an increase in existing residential density is inconsistent with the Coastal Management Act. And then that gets to the you know, Attorney Blank described it differently in terms of the special permit, that they have a right to do this. They're just applying for the permit to do what they have as a right to do. But, you know, Deep is not that there should be no, their argument seems to be what I've gathered in other towns and talking with Ms. Bayland in Norwalk, it's the increase in currently allowable density that they've objected to.
Right.
Not that there should, not that, you know, not to remove existing structures or that you can't build anything if according to the existing zoning, but it's the increase. And well, anyway, those are my comments.
Yeah, I think we should find out from zoning whether we can tie one to the other, or whether they have already earned that density increase and it's not an issue to be decided. And if that's all right.
So Chris, we don't need to respond specifically for this time?
I think that was what we were discussing, Douglas, whether the commission wishes to or wishes to put this off until the next, I shouldn't say.
I would say table it until we get the information we're looking for.
Table it to get a formal response from the applicant in response to Deep's comments, which would be a response to planning and zoning that we would then receive. And then us to better understand what Deep's policy is having to do with this increased density in the 100-year floodplain.
Agree.
Hi, John.
So do we need a motion to table this?
Yeah, I'll motion to table it.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Passes. Thank you.
And thank you for Attorney Blank to attend at the last minute.
I don't think there's
anything else.
I don't think we have anything to discuss in the walk bridge at this time, so we'll turn it back over to the regular meeting agenda.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I have no chairman's report. Under staff reports, Harbor Master, Bruce? You're muted, Bruce.
Hey, everybody. I'd just like to go through my minutes, and then I have a couple of things, and then we can go and open it up for discussion. I'd like to welcome Sergeant Basigli from the Marine Unit. Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
So on September 1st, I was notified by Norwalk PD Marine Unit, who received a complaint of a sailboat illegally moored in someone's mooring. The police unit ended up towing the vessel to the city dock, where it was learned that the vessel was just recently given to an individual. This individual was told he couldn't stay at the city dock, and that he had to be towed off of the city dock. On Sunday, September 18th, Sergeant Basigli of the Marine Unit notified me that a sailboat was anchored just outside the East Channel. And because of the wind and the high tide, the sailboat broke loose from its anchor and became lodged within the rocks of Grassy Island, where the hull was damaged, and had to be was a potential to float off. Once the police unit arrived, they noticed it was the same sailboat that they encountered back in September 1st. And the vessel was left abandoned. Due to this location and the concern that the sailboat could have refloated and become a hazard within NOAA's navigable waterway of the East Channel, I contacted Gary Wetmore of GNC Marine, who stated he can recover, remove, and break up the sailboat for disposal for approximately $6,500. I contacted Chairman Centella and Doc Pinto for approval. Sergeant Basigli explained that the owner, who apparently was homeless, was located and ended up signing the vessel's registration over to the city. At that point, the vessel was removed and destroyed. 2 days later, on September 20th, Sergeant Basigli contacted me stating that he received another sailing vessel aground on Shimin Island. Sergeant Basigli stated that the vessel appeared to be abandoned. Sergeant Basigli, myself, and community members from the harbor area was able to point us in the right direction, that the vessel was docked up at U-Haul up by Oyster Bend. And the manager told this individual that they had to leave the dock. And at this time, myself and Sergeant Basigli, we started doing a little homework to locate the owner. Sergeant Basigli and Officer Lee from the Marine Unit were able to make contact with the owner, Ian Ginwell from 22 Baxter Drive, who stated the vessel wasn't abandoned, that he anchored it over in Shimon's Island. He was trying to find another location to keep the vessel. After I learned this, I contacted Mr. Ginwell, and I had the vessel placed on one of our new transient moorings, where I told him he had to pay $200 for the next month, which he agreed to that. On September 22nd, I was notified by a concerned boater that a 33-foot sailboat named Juno was anchored near Shore and Country Club and possibly coming into contact with another sailboat that was legally moored. I notified Sergeant Basigli, who responded and agreed the vessel was dragging its anchor and was going to collide with this other vessel. I requested Sergeant Basigli to try to put the sailboat on another transient mooring, but due to the strong winds, it was determined to bring the boat to the city dock. I checked with Code Marina, and the owner ended up removing the vessel because of the boat show. Sergeant Basigli was able to make contact with the owner, who was located in Miami. I made contact with the owner and explained that no vessel can be anchored within the harbor without notifying the harbor master or notifying the Marine Police Unit. So that boat, because of the weather, was also towed to the city dock temporarily. I ended up making contact also with the owner, and that boat is currently on one of our Transient Moorings, and I told him it would be about $50 a day. So the boat was put on there, I think last Saturday, and he's coming back from Miami tomorrow. And he's also going to have to pay for the storage at the city dock. I contacted Norm Edwards and requested his list of customers in the Bell Island area. I located 22 moorings that were non-compliant with the online system. These boat owners were notified by the online system, and out of the 22 moorings, 10 have paid for this year and the years they missed. I still haven't heard from 6 others where their moorings were tagged for removal and won't be put back until they're fully paid. Another 7 moorings were located and tagged abandoned, and I'm still waiting to hear back from somebody, or if not, they're going to be pulled. I had the harbor master pulled to have the bottom painted and washed and waxed by an individual who needed to complete some community hours. After inspecting the boat, I noticed the automatic inflatable life jackets along with first aid and some other emergency equipment was expired. So I went out and purchased and replaced these items. I was contacted by Deputy Chief Walsh, and I also talked to Sergeant Basigli, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes with Mr. Stedman. We're looking to see if somehow we can purchase 5 5-mile-an-hour buoys to see if we can get some type of grant money, maybe from the Port Authority. And my last item I would like to discuss with the commission is to have the commission come up with some type of procedure or work something out with the city when we have vessels that become a navigational hazard or abandoned. These vessels need to be placed somewhere or until the owners are located or gone through, or, DEP, because what happens is, we try to do the right thing. Sergeant Basigli and his crew has got to go out in bad weather, high winds to try to move these boats. And what do you do with them? We bring them to secure them at the city dock. Next thing you know, our phones are blowing up from the city that they're complaining that we're putting boats on their docks. So we got to come up with some kind of operational plan, or the commission that's got to talk to the city, because I don't like, or the sergeant doesn't like getting calls at 10 o'clock at night that we put a boat on the city dock. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Any questions for Bruce?
Great report. I think we need to have a lot of discussion about all the things he mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Bruce, does when a vessel is put on the city dock, do they notify the person in the building? Do they go up there? I'm assuming so.
Sarge?
Yeah, they get notified about it. The issue isn't so much putting them on the city dock. It's a lot of these things have been happening during the Oyster Fest and the boat show. So you have dock space at a premium. And there seems to be some miscommunication at times between if that boat's okay to be there or not okay to be there. So if you guys could help us out with some sort of longer term solution, whether it be extra moorings or some sort of plan with a yard so the boat can be pulled, because obviously it's becoming more of a thing, especially I think after COVID, all these boats are going to start winding up abandoned over time. So I think it's kind of, we need to have a longer term plan to deal with this, because these boats have been 36-foot sailboat, 42-foot catamaran or trimaran. So not like small old dinghies that we're dealing with. They're sizable boats that are taking up a lot of space.
Not to interrupt the Sarge. Each scenario is different. If we had to put a boat on a mooring and we had a mooring available, moorings available, no issue. If the boat's floatable, no hazards on it, no problem. In 1 week, we had 3. And I think that's where the people at the city kind of went a little crazy.
Yeah.
Just to jump in a little bit, other locations have in their fee schedule, fees for impounding boats, $100 a day plus so much per foot for having to tie up a boat at a dock. If we had an arrangement with Recreation and Parks that runs the city dock, we have to leave a boat there. There's $100 plus a lot that we could be funneling over to Parks and Rec for using that city dock. So I think that we really need to look at what tools the harbor master has at his disposal for impounding moorings. Again, other cities have a charge for impounding and mooring. An abandoned mooring, you can't, somebody has to pull it out, and who pays Norm Edwards to pull the mooring out? He doesn't do it for free. So right now that
Gary
tends to
Wetmore,
fall-
big
or Gary-
expense, big expense,
it falls to someone
Yeah.
who pulls out the mooring, who does all this. So there needs to be a whole schedule of something or a whole plan for dealing with all these things that crummy, lazy people are leaving up to us.
This,
Well, I
I
think
don't know
the
if
problem,
you can see, but this is what I had made. This is what I'm putting on moorings now. If they're abandoned or you're in mooring violation, and people are calling me off the hook.
Oh,
That they
good.
haven't paid since 2015.
well, I don't think the problem is as big as the one with the boats are not abandoned. The thing is when a boat is abandoned, that means nobody's going to pay for it. Somebody's washed their hands of this. And, if it's somebody that's homeless or, a boat that isn't titled, good luck sending the bill to anybody that,
Right.
and actually impounding and selling a boat. There's a DEEP process for that. And it's quite long and extensive. It has
Long.
to be like 6 months at least. I looked it up when that boat went up on Tavern Island. And just a question without using names, was the boat from the homeless guy, was that the same guy who owned the boat that ended up on Tavern Island?
No.
No, different boat.
Different. And Tavern Island, that's private property. That should
Right,
fall
but
on
that
homeowner.
was this guy's boat. I know, and I don't want to, bring the guy's name into it. Well,
Right,
yeah,
right,
and
right.
the guy who owned Tavern Island had to pay Gary Wetmore several grand. So I guess that was between Gary and the owner of Tavern Island, and it cost him quite a bit. The $6,500 for this abandoned vessel, did that come out of our funds?
Jeffrey,
Who did that?
Yeah,
That didn't come out of anywhere yet.
Jeffrey,
yeah, Bruce and I have been talking about this. We've talked with DEEP, which has a fund, it's called their Supplemental Environmental Project Fund, but it includes monies that they get from violators, fines, and they put it in that fund, which is available potentially for the removal of abandoned and derelict vessels, if there's no other alternative to remove them. So we've been discussing this with DEEP. This is a little bit different because DEEP says usually when someone or a municipality will apply for those funds, the boat hasn't been removed as of yet. They don't have the resources to do it, and they're looking for funds. In this instance, the boat was removed, and we're making the argument that it was removed based on the judgment of the harbor master and the police department that it posed a hazard or a potential risk to navigation. So we've been given the okay to fill out this form and include the form for the funds, and include the report that the information that the harbor master has given. When we have to make the argument or attest to that it was clear that the last owner of record, and I believe the registration was transferred to the city before the removal, which is at the direction of the boating division. So that was all done properly. But we have to make clear that it's, and how we know this, that the owner has no funds that could be obtained. And then also that what DEEP has asked is we have to state or make the argument that the Harbor Commission, does not have the funds to do this. And so we were talking about that previously there was an item in the commission's budget for the removal of abandoned vessels. But Dr. Pinto said that money was taken back by the by the city. I don't know how many years ago, but the statement has to be that we don't have the money in the budget right now, in this year's budget to do this. And we have to pay that $6,500 or so bill. So that's, there's a potential source of funds, but we have to address certain questions. And the other matter, which is interesting, Chris and I met last week with people from the city about the grant from the Connecticut Port Authority. And what we learned is that there's a complicated or involved process for the city to accept any money from grants or from grants that involves the mayor and the common council. But DEEP, rather than going through all of that, if we were to be able to get that $6,500 from DEEP said that the harbor master, as a state official, could accept money from this supplemental environmental program for the removal of an abandoned boat. So that's what we're working on. If the commission agrees to pursue that we would get the information from the report that Bruce stated, fill out the application form with that information, and request that the funds be provided to the state of Connecticut harbor master. That's what we're working on, if that's agreeable to the commission.
Sounds good, Jeff.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to go.
But we also
So
have to make
as of now, so Gary Wetmore hasn't been paid. That's just an outstanding bill that if all this works,
I didn't get the bill until Tuesday, so it's nothing's outstanding.
All right, I mean, yeah.
Just question, do we need a small subcommittee to review the issues that we've expressed now? That's not necessarily being taken care of by DEEP.
Yeah, what happens in the future? You know, in the future, I think it would help our submittal this time if we could say that the commission is working towards a way to address this in a coordinated manner with policies involving the police department and the harbor master in the future, and that hopefully we could have funds reserved for this, but we don't now.
Well, I think we should have a small committee to review this information, including the harbor master. I'd be happy to be part of this. Anybody else interested in Al?
I am.
Yeah, DJ, it's Matt Gifford. I was talking with Bruce about this earlier during the week, and I think it's just absurd that we don't have some type of policy in place to give these guys the support they need to handle these issues as they see fit, because they seem to be coming fast and furious, especially with a potential, economic downturn in the next year with so many boats that were purchased last year. We really should put some type of policy in place so these guys have the support from us to do these things properly and be able to have, funding associated with it.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's only fair to the harbor master to have a whole, program to know what to do when these things
Something to fall back on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like they're kind of out there on their own with trying to do good and not sure how they're going to afford to pay for this. So, whether it be Gary or, others that are able to step in and help these situations. I mean, I saw the boat out there. I was talking to Bruce about it. I saw both the boats out there, and, it was a navigational hazard. So I think there's definitely some sort of way to support these guys and put something in place that we can help with, so that there is some type of policy going forward, so that when they find a boat that's either derelict or left, or, fill in the blank with the decision here, but that they have some type of option how to handle this.
Agreed,
Okay,
Matt.
Just like you mentioned, DJ, I'd be happy to help out with stuff like that, because I think it's just
that's
critical,
fine,
because
Matt.
it's only going to get more.
Myself, I think Mike had your hand up. Al, we don't want to get it too
good.
It's just going to go, we won't get anything done.
Yeah.
But I count on you to sort of put this together for us and contact and contact the members here and see when we can get together.
Was that me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Al. All right, so go ahead, whoever's.
No, Jeffrey, what about the buoys that we talked about earlier?
Well, that's another issue.
Well, okay.
we just talked about that this afternoon, about the Marine Police and the Harbor Master believe that additional or new speed, not additional, new speed buoys, right? Is that right, Bruce,
Yes.
are needed? And we contacted the Connecticut Port Authority, which has that Small Harbor Improvements Project grant. And the project manager said that those are fundable through the Small Harbor Improvement Projects grant. And he said he could talk with me more about that tomorrow, whether we'd have to wait another year to apply or whether they have some money, but that's a potential source of funds for purchasing new speed buoys.
Jeff, are these the no wake buoys we're talking about?
Yes,
What is the
Chairman.
cost of those buoys?
I kind of researched a little bit today, anywhere between $300 and $500 a buoy.
Now, where do we plan to put them, Bruce?
So our plan is we're going to put a few more in the channel itself, just so it's more marked, more like speed limit signs on a road. So there's not like one at the beginning and, you put one in the middle, one towards the end, whatever. And we want to put one up towards Oyster Bend and one out towards Manresa. So we have a little more, just more signage, making it clear.
There used to be 3 at the end of the harbor up by Manresa, coming in from the west channel, coming in from the east channel, and one in the middle. And then there was 2 down in the harbor. And I think there should be one up by Oyster Bend because everyone's always speeding around, coming, especially with the construction coming. I think one should be up there.
Good point.
I have another location I'd like to suggest, which is at everything north of the southern end of Hoyt Island. So we're talking in Sheffield Harbor, entering Village Creek. Everything north of the south end of, and this is in the harbor management plan, everything north of the south end of Hoyt Island is a 5-mile-an-hour no wake zone. And people water ski in there, even people coming in and out of Village Creek.
Good call. Yes.
Yeah, so we've tried to control it from the Village Creek end, but and it throws a big wake up, and I know somebody broke their collarbone, get knocked off their paddleboard, stuff like that. So, and it's already established as a zone. So, thank you.
So Jeff, does the commission need to do anything at this point to get this moving?
I don't think so. I think we just have to get more information about the availability of the funds and when the funds might be available. And then Bruce and I talked earlier about there are some perhaps permitting issues that we have to deal with as well. But the guy at the Port Authority asked that certain questions, and we'll get the information to him.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything to say? Any further comments in your report, Jeff?
Oh, me?
Yes.
I should stop talking now. Thanks.
You don't have to.
I know, I almost got you beat, Jeff.
Okay. Shellfish Commission.
Was that me, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay,
Can
sure.
you hear me?
Yeah, I do now. Yeah, it was cut off a little bit. So we did not have a quorum last month. We did discuss the Roten Point Association essential paving over of the intertidal zone to lengthen that ramp. I'd expect that there to be some vote next Thursday night, the 6th. But that's really all we have for you, sir. The other property we looked at was in the 5 Mile River outside of this commission's jurisdiction. So eat narwhal shellfish, and I yield back. And welcome to Sergeant Pasigli.
Thank you, Steve. Next is mooring and harbor safety, and I guess that's me. The committee continues to monitor the emails and the renewal applications and address any issues and concerns. We have 65 approved applications and 63 renewals under review. We received the mooring field inventory from Sprite Island. We will be receiving an additional final payment from Norwalk Yacht Club. I went through a rather extensive check of their inventory, and they're missing about a number of boats, which is probably $1,500. They recognize the situation, and they're going to be sending me a check. So that's in the wings. Okay. I'm in contact with the harbor master as required regarding any issues, including locating moorings that are in use that have not been permitted, as the harbor master mentioned. So he keeps me informed, and I appreciate his work going on, his help. I have, under harbor safety, I have no issues or concerns that I'm aware of. That concludes my report. Thank you.
I have one question. Is how do we account for all these kind of strange moorings that Bruce is finding now? Is that just slips through the cracks, or how do we have abandoned or empty moorings?
I don't mean to point any fingers, but unfortunately, in the past, they weren't really tracked down like they are now. And on an application level, you can't determine that. They'll say anything on the application and to make it look like they're legal, but it just, and I don't have a boat anymore, so I can't go out and check myself. So I appreciate the eyes from Bruce to see what's going on. So I think it's been a long time that we've had this kind of things being determined, and it's only going to be better from now on.
Excellent. I mean, I
If I answered your question, Al, I'm sorry if I didn't.
No, you did. I think that you should think about, it's with all these boats that are saying they're there and all the moorings and all the information from the managed fields, it's a big job for Bruce to be looking after that too. And I just don't know if we should have a deputy harbor master out there on the harbor master boat from time to time, just checking up on all that stuff.
I know one was submitted. I don't know where his
maybe once we get the deputy harbor master, we'll be able to do that, I think.
Yeah, I know one was submitted. I don't know where that is with Doc Pinto, but a name was submitted.
It's a big harbor and there are a lot of moorings, and it is a lot of work if we want to keep everybody up to snuff and straight and narrow in terms of paying what they're supposed to be paying for, and so on and so forth.
What's a big help is like I went to Norm Edwards Marine. I'm like, hey, I want all your customers. I want the names of your customers. And then I take the names of his customers and then I check them within the system. And now it's a check and balance, because I told Norm Edwards, no mooring gets dropped until the city's paid first. So he would, the person would contact him, he would put the mooring in, and he'd say, hey, you got to go online and get the city permit. No more. That's done. That's been explained to him. And he's already sent a letter out to his people that the city gets paid first, then you come to me. If it's approved, then you come to me.
And they need to get their application up to date.
Right. Tom Rutherford, I reached out to him. He's kind of hard guy to get a hold of. I sent him a text a couple weeks ago. I'm like, hey, can you send me I want the list of your customers, whoever you deal with out there, so I can fact check it within our system. Because, I had one incident where, I kept calling this individual that he needed to pay for his mooring. He goes, what are you talking about? I'm leasing a mooring through Tom Rutherford. I'm like, what? No. That was him. So, I went to Tom Rutherford. Hey, I want the list of whoever you deal with out there. I want the list of your customers, because I'm checking up. So everybody's pretty much on notice now, and my little stickers are helping too.
Thanks, Bruce. There's a new sheriff in town. That's all.
That's right.
Bruce, it's Lori Jones. I just want to say thank you for streamlining the system, because as a mooring owner ourselves, my husband took care of it with Norm, but it was definitely, once it switched to the online, things got lost in the shuffle and it was very unclear. And so thank you for streamlining it.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce, do you
Yeah.
want to talk about transient moorings?
We haven't.
Do you want to?
Sure. We need more. So right now, where we are with some of these individuals that had issues, and I put them on moorings, we're almost equal with what we put out so far. Of the
Yeah, I
two-
think it's
the
just
two
important
transient
that we
moorings
have,
that we have out there.
we have 2 transient moorings this year, and we're working on getting the city to get us connected with DACWA for promoting, reserving, and collecting funds. But Bruce has done a fabulous job of using those moorings for people who are looking for storage for their boat for a few weeks or a few days. So we've almost covered the cost of putting the moorings in. I'm just very pleased with his hard work on that.
Yeah, just so the commission knows that I had several phone calls about, hey, especially with the boat show. You guys have transient moorings, and since dock wall wasn't set up, it's not set up. I told one guy, hey, you're gonna come for a few hours or whatever. It's it's $45, and I was gonna go out and collect the fees from him. But due to the weather, he didn't come up. So, but I've received probably 8 or 10 calls so far about transient mooring. So at least the word's getting out there that we do have a couple, which is important.
Okay, Al, finance? Al, can you hear me?
Al, you're muted.
I'm unmuting. Now I'm unmuted. I'm done with doing my space bar. I sent you all a spreadsheet on where we are.
Got it, nice.
I don't know if I need to share my screen and go through that with you. And I
No,
also,
unless someone wants to see it again, but
we're in good shape. We're sitting on a lot of cash. I did pestering consultant Stedman for invoices so that we don't look like we're sitting there on a bunch of money, but we were approved for like a $24,000 grant for this year, but we're already sitting on $23,000 that we haven't spent. So I'd just like to get any expenses in. Bruce has been good about giving me receipts from fixing up the harbor master's boat and getting that going and things like that. We don't want to be looking like we're asking for more money than we need, but we do have some money to spend there. So I'm thinking about these extra speed buoy, no wake buoys and things like that. We could afford to buy several of those just out of our harbor funds rather than looking for a grant or doing anything like that. And there's a little bit of money there for that kind of thing. So I also tried. I sent you a kind of a program by program. What we make and where it comes from and where it goes. And our mooring revenue is kind of stable from year to year. We have more of one kind, but fewer of another kind. So that's about the same. I don't know about the Harbor Watch money, how that comes and goes, but we always get billed every year for that item. I don't know if there's anybody on the line that knows what that's for, or is that a contribution from the shelf from the Harbor Management Commission, or just what? Is there anybody? Jeff?
Well, we've talked about this for the past several years as to what that money is used for. Because when it was initially authorized, it was for the interns to test or to sample water from the storm drains in the harbor. And now it's our understanding that some of that money is being used for testing upstream in the Norwalk River, upstream of the harbor. So we talked to the new director of Harbor Watch. Oh gosh, I can't recall her name, but she's agreeable to meeting with the Water Quality Committee, and I'm sure she would be agreeable to meeting with the commission as well to go over exactly what the money is being used for. Because our concern was that if the money's not being used for work in the harbor, we should consider that maybe there should be some sort of condition that it is used in the harbor and not upstream. But they've made the argument that the testing upstream benefits the harbor, so. But we can, the new director is willing to talk with us, and that maybe the first stop is the Water Quality Committee to talk about where, because the Shellfish Commission also provides funds for Harbor Watch. And so does the DPW. But I don't have a straight answer to your question, Alan. We've talked about this. for a
It's just,
long time.
it's, you know, it kind of predates me, so I
Yes.
just see these things come through and get approved, and that's what's always happened. So I have to ask the question, is that something we should be paying for, or is it, or not? You know,
That's the
and-
question we have. We raised that several years ago, and we haven't really addressed it completely.
And the other piece is the water quality interns, which we in the past have gotten, again, last year we had a $5,000 transfer from the health department. This year it was $3,000. And we pay the Harbor Commission pays the water quality interns from the health department, which are presumably testing water and doing that kind of thing. But it is a net loss for us. Not that's I mean, that shouldn't matter in the case of protecting the harbor and doing all that. That the Harbor Commission is contributing to that. I just want to be sure it's correct, that I don't have any personal history with those expenses.
Maybe we could ask Joe if we could invite the new director of Harbor Watch to a water quality meeting for the specific purpose of talking about where the money comes from and what it's used for, from both Shellfish and the Harbor Commission and the DPW.
Is that a good idea, Jeff or Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. And the other issue we have, Save the Sound raised the issue condemning some of the harbor and giving us an F rating. And we were never notified that there was a problem. And if somebody's going out there doing the testing, a lot of these results, they get back 24 to 48 hours later. They should be telling us, you got an issue here, and then we can address it. And if they wait a whole year to tell us we had a problem last year, that's bogus.
Crazy. That's nuts. Joe, do you know all the players, or Jeff, to know who to reach out to have a powwow?
Yes.
I know of them. I don't, and I have met them, but I don't know them well. So I'm more than happy to reach out to them and open up discussions. The other issue we have, the health department's going to be closing their lab. And that becomes an issue, because we could always count on them historically to run tests, especially the E. coli tests. They don't have sophisticated equipment at this point, and Harbor Watch doesn't have sophisticated equipment to do things like heavy metal testing or anything else like that. So that still has to be sent out. But these are issues that we need to deal with. And the other issue is having, and I've been saying this all along, the 24-hour monitoring. You know, it's and we're going to have a presentation tonight in a few minutes with Brittany Isbicki and USGS as to what they're doing, so that you have an idea of what the government is doing. And the nice thing about their work is it can be downloaded from your home desk 24 hours a day, almost 365 days out of the year. And she'll talk to you about that. But yeah, there's Harbor Watch is something we have to bring into the fold.
Okay, so Dennis, we need to talk about how to get that going. Because I
Okay.
would like to know where the money goes. That's all.
Well, I think that sheet you put together is very helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to continue doing that, because it just helps me understand where our money
Exactly,
goes.
and it opens up people's eyes up, including mine.
I have one other, before I shut up, I have one other comment. I circulated a invoice from consultant Jeff Stedman, who works very hard for us. We do need to vote on, because the amount on approving that. I don't know if everybody's saw that, but I'd like to have a up or down vote if that's acceptable to the commission. I just move that we accept Jeff's invoice.
I
All in
make a
favor?
motion that
Second
yep, absolutely.
Anybody opposed?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries.
Done.
Aye.
Worth every penny.
Well, thank you.
And more, frankly, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess you're gonna get paid, Jeff.
yeah. You can sigh. You have a big sigh, Jeff?
Can I make a comment about the transient moorings?
Yes.
You know, we had the transient moorings that were south of the visitors dock. And we were talking and planning about putting them back, or, you know, buying new hardware and putting it back. And that was another project that was potentially fundable from the Connecticut Port Authority for the purchase of new helical moorings or whatever we wanted to put there. However, and also Deep said we wouldn't need any special permits. The harbor master could place them at his direction. However, the DOT, as you know, was granted a permit by Deep to place mooring or bridge related vessels, construction related vessels for the walk bridge. I think there's 3 mooring locations that were approved there without any input from the harbor master. And that's for at least the 5-year construction period. So that eliminated that. And so that's an issue we're still pursuing now. But we had the opportunity, we could have applied back in July for funds from the Port Authority for the mooring hardware for transient moorings in that location.
How do we know about what grant money is available? How does that get to the commission?
Well, we talked about that, and we made the agreement that this year we would apply for the funds for the evaluation of the street ends.
Yep.
And which we did. And the city, of course, is interested, because this is an annual fund. It's called the Small Harbor Improvement Projects Program, and the Port Authority is authorized by the legislature to spend up to $5 million a year for the next 4 years. And plus they had additional monies that they hadn't spent already. So one of the principal projects that we're talking about is the refurbishment of the Veterans Park Marina. That's a project, but they need to get the permits for it first. But it's an annual project or annual grant program, Alan. And we discussed it back in June and agreed that this year, but after we were told that we couldn't apply for the mooring tackle because we couldn't guarantee that we could put it in place because of the DOT permit or the.
Right. I understand. I just,
That gets
the question
kind
of,
of
did you
circular.
work with Parks and Recreation and Parks on that as well? I mean, because they manage those docks. I just don't know. I understand who's involved and who's calling the shots or pushing forward with a grant.
Well, we could do that ourselves for the transient mooring hardware. I mean, in fact, that the grant program is set up from the Port Authority it's for projects that are consistent with the municipal harbor management plan, and the harbor management commissions are encouraged to be the applicants. So we prepared the grant for the street end study, even though it was submitted by the city through the grant writer, but it submitted what we wrote.
Yeah, I know Jeff has been working on, because the problem we have in Norwalk Harbor for transient moorings is that, the deep water is just alongside the federal channels. It's kind of what you begin to learn. That's where the deep water is. Everywhere else is shallow. So, Jeff's working hard on getting these mini docks that are restrained with some high technology cables, where we can turn one location to a location for 4 boats, which is ideal for the transients. And we should be looking for funds for that, because that's a tremendous step forward for us because transient moorings, moorers, transit boaters aren't really happy trying to tie up front and back because they don't know how to do that. And we do that a lot in Norwalk, but other places it's all by the bow and you swing. So having a little floating dock there is brilliant for us for transients. And I think that's something that we should be working hard on because I think that bringing more visitors into Norwalk really helps our community. I think it's just really important to get more people in to see what a great place this is. Aside from water quality, I'm sorry guys, but aside from all the other stuff, we have a lively place to be and come visit. And I think that's important to our economy and our reputation around the state. So I'll be quiet now.
What's stopping us from taking some money and buying some moorings and putting them out there and renting them?
We have money to do that. It's kind of
so nothing's stopping us from doing that next spring.
Nothing.
I mean,
the grants and all that are a year or two away. They're not in 2023 season.
That's right.
The DOT is not using that space. They're not challenging us for that space anytime soon.
I don't know which space. I don't know where the DOT want to put their barges.
The northern end, the part of the mooring field closest to Veterans Park. The northern tip of that is one of the areas they have marked on their application. But you know, there's no reason we can't start dropping moorings and renting them. You know, April
down
1st.
there's kind of hard because it's shallow water and you'd have to do a front and a back mooring. That's the area where you could do the docks.
Yeah.
In the mooring field though, not alongside Veterans Park, but once you get down into the federal anchorage.
More southern, down by the East Channel. That's where we have the two. Because I can have them. They're single.
Yeah.
If you go more north up by the docks, it just gets shallower.
No, not up there, but like in the anchorage where there's full water. You know, you decide where they go. If you reserve 4 spaces for visitors or 10 spaces or 2 spaces, that's your decision. The rest of the customers can.
Personally, I like to see some out amongst the islands. That's the jewel. I mean, if you go out towards Sheffield, I mean, one day I went out there must have been 20 boats that were anchored. If you put 3, you know, we're not asking a lot. That's just income just coming in, you know, and with the dock walk, you'll be able to go 2 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, or overnight.
Yep.
It's a no-brainer.
Dennis, I'm gonna interrupt here because we have 3
Yeah, I was
guests.
about ready to cut in.
Thank you.
I'd like to suspend the meeting or the minutes, the agenda for a presentation. Joe will introduce everyone. Do I have a motion? Someone make a motion. Get it.
Got it.
Second.
What are we motioning? What are we moving?
We're suspending the meeting until we could have our presentation through Joe. Sure.
Okay. I have a few points related, but Joe needs to go. That's good. Go ahead.
Okay, we have 3 people who have offered to present tonight. Brittany Spicky, and she's with the U.S. Geologic Survey. And she's a supervisor of hydraulic technician. And Kelly Strick with the Connecticut DEEP. And John Morrison, who's the QA/QC officer for the USGS. And the reason that they're here is they have monitoring stations in Norwalk. And it's to enlighten you as to what these stations are capable of doing, what they do, how frequently they monitor the equipment, and how you can access the data from these equipment. So Brittany, I see your smiling face. So she's here, ready to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Great. And I will share my screen. And just want to make sure everyone can see the presentation.
Yes, you're good.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for letting us attend the meeting today. We're very excited to talk to you about the embayment monitoring we've been doing on the Norwalk. And so before I get started, I did want to talk about the long-standing work that USGS has been doing in the Norwalk watershed since like early 1960. We have a stream gauging station, the Norwalk River at South Wilton, and that has been operating since 1962. Just below that, we do have a long-term discrete water quality station since 1980. It became part of a national water quality assessment study in USGS in the early 1990s. And we do intensive sampling at this site. We sample for nutrients, metals, herbicides, pesticides, bacteria indicators, and we have done some biological community assessment in the past as well. So starting in May of 2021, last year, we have moved further down into the embayment as part of a larger study, which I'm going to focus the presentation on. So Connecticut Deep is looking to develop a series of systematic monitoring and modeling efforts for 8 priority embayments, which are indicated on this map. And this is part of a comprehensive approach to manage the impacts to the Long Island Sound and its coastal embayments. So of the 8 priority embayments, USGS is going to collect discrete and continuous water quality and hydrologic data. And that includes Norwalk River and Mystic River. Data collection began in May of 2021, and that will go through April of 2023 next year. The Saugatuck River, and this is called Sasko, but it's the Southport Sasko Mill Harbor. That began May of 2022 this year, and that's going to go through April of 2024. So each embayment is running for 2 full years. And this study will support the development of nutrient models for each embayment that will build off of the existing long-term ambient water quality monitoring network that is currently operated by USGS and Connecticut Deep. So we will take estimates of nutrient loading that will be used within our upstream non-tidal watersheds, along with the nutrient models for each embayment for a statewide watershed model. And the Norwalk embayment monitoring, like I said, that began last May, and it is set to end next April of 23. We identified 3 sites along the Norwalk embayment. We have Ferry Point as our upper, and that is near the Maritime Rowing Club. We have the Norwalk Aquarium and Norwalk Cove Marina. And I will discuss further the data collection at each site. Our discrete water quality data collection. So we collect discrete water quality samples bi-monthly. We did that from May to October last year during the summer. And then we cut back to monthly samples from November of 21 to April of 23. We collect top and bottom samples at all 3 locations. And right here, this table identifies all of the parameters that we send in for analysis. Most of these go into our National Water Quality Lab in Denver, Colorado. And we collect vertical profiles during each sample. So this information will provide a lot of useful data for the nutrient cycling that we will be seeing in these embayments. The continuous water quality data, this is going to run year round for 2 years. So at the Norwalk River at Ferry Point, we had a near surface monitor that was internal logging, and that was only collecting water temperature, specific conductance, and computing salinity. We did do some additional monitoring that involved top and bottom continuous monitors with dissolved oxygen during the summer of 2022, and I'll explain further why we decided to do that modification. The Norwalk River at the Maritime Aquarium, we have top and bottom monitors, and those are real-time data. So even though the Ferry Point is internal logging, we still load that data to the web. It's just not real time. It's a 2 to 3 week lag that you'll be able to see the data. And the Norwalk Harbor at Cove Marina, that also has top and bottom monitors. That's pictured right here. And that also has the real-time data. So we have our Norwalk Harbor and then our aquarium locations right here. And the continuous data is 6-minute intervals. And the top and bottom really allow us to assess the stratification in the water column. And we can monitor those diurnal and tidal and patterns for the physical and biological patterns in the water and see how they change seasonally as well. We're also collecting estuary elevation and velocity data. We have velocity uplookers pictured right here, and that is collected at Cove Marina and the Maritime Aquarium. And then we do have an estuary water surface elevation collected at the aquarium as well. And this velocity data will provide the tidal volume each day and information on how much mixing is occurring throughout the estuary. And the stage data will help us really look at that water level and infer what's going on with the velocity. So I wanted to show some vertical profiles that we performed last summer in 2021. This was during our discrete sample collection. So we have vertical profiles in July, August, and September. I have specific conductance versus depth up top and dissolved oxygen versus depth on the bottom. And then we have Ferry Point, Aquarium, and Cove Marina plotted for all of these graphs as well. And we were really looking at the changes in the salinity structure and how it relates to DO from these vertical profiles. It was really interesting to see the relationship between the fresh water and the surface water, especially at Ferry Point. We did see that first foot of fresh water when we were sampling, which we made sure to collect that sample at about a foot below the surface. And then the bottom sample was about 1.5 feet above the bottom. So we did see stratification at Ferry Point and the aquarium, especially in July and August. We can see that freshwater lens right in the first few feet with the dissolved oxygen values higher. And then as we drop down in depth and we approach those saltwater conditions, we could see that the DO was really dropping. And we did see some DO values during the summer in the upper embayment as low as 1 milligram per liter in August and as high as 21 milligrams per liter in September. So there was this outlier right here in September at Ferry Point that we were able to associate an algae bloom with that. And the Cove Marina didn't show stratification, which we expected. We expected it to be more well mixed down there, but we did see some low DO values that were approaching 5 milligrams per liter in the summer. And when we showed this data to Kelly from Connecticut Deep, she was really interested in the DO data at Ferry Point, and that's what prompted some additional monitoring that we did this summer at Ferry Point. We really wanted to look at top and bottom conditions because we did see that stratification, and we really wanted to look at the dissolved oxygen at well and really monitor continuous data, get that 6-minute data and look at that tidal and diurnal swings.
Excuse me, Brittany,
Yes.
just tell me what the specific conductance is.
Specific conductance, so that's how we compute our salinity. So that's just the conductivity, how much salt is in the water. So we use specific conductance and water temperature to compute salinity. And so we will have salinity as a published value eventually.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then right here, this was just explaining the outlier that I showed in September that showed that high dissolved oxygen value of 21 milligrams per liter. We were able to confirm that with our discrete data. So here I have discrete data of phosphorus on the left and chlorophyll on the right against dissolved oxygen. And we were able to confirm that algae bloom with the discrete data, which was really interesting. And then right here graphed, we usually see the dissolved oxygen values lower as the phosphorus values do increase. So during the summer of 2022, this past summer, we experienced sustained high temperatures and drought conditions that led to below normal stream flows. So the upper and middle Norwalk did monitor extreme fluctuations in DO. And these sensors were able to capture high DO levels during the day and low DO levels at night for both the top and bottom. I only have the top graphed here, but I will show another graph that does show the top and bottom. The water temperatures did reach about 30 degrees Celsius at Ferry Point, and the aquarium, I believe, was about 28 degrees Celsius. So we did have warmer conditions. And on multiple days in July, the most upstream site at Ferry Point did measure dissolved oxygen more than 20 milligrams per liter during the day. And then it did drop to near zero levels at night at the water surface. And the Norwalk Aquarium measured 14 milligrams per liter during the day, and then little to no oxygen at night. Cove Marina didn't show the extreme fluctuations or the near zero values for DO, but we did record values less than 5 milligrams per liter at Cove Marina this summer. And so what we really captured was super saturated conditions at Ferry Point, which was very questionable and concerning to us. We never saw values that high. And we believe that was caused by the primary productivity during the day. And then we could see the zero DO values drop to because due to respiration at night. And so right here, I have graphed the Norwalk River at Ferry Point on the left, and I have the top graph and the bottom, and then the Maritime Aquarium that is graphed on the top and the bottom for dissolved oxygen. So I grabbed a period in July, about 2 weeks, just to really show these extreme fluctuations that we were seeing. And we could see that Ferry Point did record baseline zero DO values earlier on in July, and then eventually the aquarium, we did see those zero DO values later on in July and early August as well. But it was Ferry Point that we were really seeing these extreme fluctuations from very high DO values greater than 20 milligrams per liter to hypoxic and even anoxic conditions. So this really caused alarm for us, and we really wanted to make sure that we were doing all the necessary quality assurance procedures to validate this data. And so I did want to dedicate a slide just to kind of discuss some of the procedures we do. And so we do perform site visits every 2 to 3 weeks where we check the sensors for fouling and drift. Those are the two corrections that we apply to the data if it exceeds the criteria. And all of our procedures for field operations, maintenance, and data analysis is based off of our national USGS procedures. So our continuous data is corrected only if it exceeds the criteria. And we make sure that we go there, we bring out a calibrated field monitor so that we can use that as a comparison. And we separate the fouling and the drift analysis, like assessing the fouling and the drift out. So we will pull the monitor, we will record readings before it's even touched. We will pull the monitor, we'll do a full cleaning on it, redeploy it, take those readings, and our field monitor will be deployed the whole time to assess any changing conditions. That's really important during our analysis when we compute that fouling error to see if there's any changing conditions. Once we've assessed for fouling, we will pull the monitor again and we will check it for drift. And that's where we're going to perform a calibration check on the sensor. We don't calibrate it every time because we don't want to risk over calibrating the data. There's a lot of error that can be introduced from environmental error. There's the sensor accuracy that we want to consider and a lot of environmental concerns that can cause over calibrating and over correcting the data. So we do have this defined criteria that we stick to. With these low DO values, not only did we want to check the calibration of the sensor, but we wanted to perform zero DO checks. We brought out sodium sulfate that we would check our sensors in to make sure that they were within that criteria of reading at zero values. And if they were not, we would replace the membrane immediately so that we could make sure that we were getting accurate zero DO readings. So right here, I do have a graph of Ferry Point, top and bottom. This was a site visit day, as you can see with the gap in the data. We perform vertical profiles during all of our continuous visits and with our discrete data, and that really helps us assess the site monitors at top and bottom and validate those readings at those depths. So as we can see, the top and the bottom were reading pretty close to each other. They were reading around 2 or 3 milligrams per liter. And when we took our calibrated separate monitor that we bring from the office and we perform a profile, as we move down the water column, we are able to confirm those 2 to 3 milligrams per liter readings, which is another way to validate the data. So with these real-time capabilities, we were able to monitor the data daily and perform non-routine visits if we suspect issues. What we would do is we would flag the data if it was questionable until we could further investigate by performing a site visit. And so we do experience a lot of fouling at these sites, especially biofouling, corrosion from the salt water. And There are some periods that we can't recover due to this. There were some times where we would find the DO membrane scratched due to fouling, and the accuracy of the sensor is compromised, and we don't have faith in that data anymore. But luckily, we were able to perform non-routine visits at a timely manner and be able to address the fouling, replace the membrane if necessary, perform calibration. So we do feel pretty confident in the data that we were able to collect this summer.
Brittany, just for clarification for the group here, can you point to which thing the membrane gets replaced on?
So right here, so this is a dirty song. This is when you pull it before you clean it at the top picture. What's nice with the YSI Exos is they have a central wiper, and the central wiper, before it takes any 6-minute reading, it wipes all of the faces of the sensor, which is a really great tool. And that wiper does work, but if there are critters that do get stuck in the bristle, this is our optical DO sensor right here. And the membrane it's not a rugged membrane. It can easily get scratched. And usually what we would do is we would look at that membrane, and if we can see any scratches or if we can see blue light coming through, that means that it's no good and we have to replace it. And most of the time what we can do is we can replace just this top part right here, which is really nice and cost effective, instead of having to replace the whole sensor. So we would we would usually swap the sensor and bring out the calibrated sensor with a new membrane. And then we would bring the sensor back to the office and try to perform a controlled calibration on it to see if we can correct that data. And sometimes we're not able to correct the data if it does exceed what we call our maximal allowable limit of correcting. And if we can't correct it, we will delete it. So if the data is questionable or if we see extremes, we go through many stages of verifying this data. We use a lot of comparison parameters that are at the site. We use stage data. We use our comparison sites. What's nice with the Norwalk embayment is that we were able to monitor those fluctuations in DO that we were seeing at Ferry Point with the aquarium. Even though it wasn't as extreme, they were comparing really well. And we do have the comparison discrete data too, which is really useful. The upstream flow from our stream gauges and our extra data collection by performing vertical profiles. So we can really see how that data is looking through the entire water column. So we do go through multiple lines of evidence to back the data up before it goes through the approval and the publish. We do put it through a lot of scrutiny. Like I said, when we were seeing those really high values, that we did some extra measures just to make sure that we could really validate this data. And that was my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any more questions or talk about any more of the data. I did provide some links. This is our regional stream quality assessment website, our Northeast stream quality assessment that involves the Norwalk River. This is the Norwalk watershed plan from Connecticut Deep. And then this bottom link is the project page that provides easy links to get the real-time data pretty easily.
Can we all get a copy of that then? That's great.
Yeah, yep.
It's amazing. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm kind of overwhelmed.
Great presentation. Really
Yeah.
great presentation.
Amazing.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
I have a question, Brittany.
Thank you, Brittany.
Brittany, I have a question. How is Norwalk doing in comparison with other embayments?
So during the summer, we also, and sorry, if you close your eyes real quick, I'm just going to scroll up to the other two embayments here. The Saugatuck and the Southport, it was really nice to have some data collection at those adjacent embayments. We do have two buoys, one at the mouth of the Saugatuck and one at the mouth of Southport. And we were able to compare lower DO values. We didn't see those extremes like we did with the Norwalk River, but we did see values that did go below 5 milligrams per liter with these sites in the upper and lower Saugatuck and Southport. And even Mystic, which usually doesn't have DO values that low, we were seeing the upper Mystic approach some low DO values below 5 milligrams per liter.
A point to make while Brittany's on that. We've been somewhat lucky this summer in that we have not had a lot of bunker menhaden moving into the river. Because when a big school moves into the river, that can also tank your dissolved oxygen. And historically in years past, that's when we've had huge fish kills. And it usually occurs when the water temperature is above 70 degrees and your dissolved oxygen is below 3 parts per million. And that's when a big school can literally suffocate themselves. So having this data, when Tony DeAndrea was head of the Harbor Commission, I would call Tony up and I'd say, Tony, we're at a point now where we could see fish kills. And if I looked out the window and I saw huge schools of bunker outside the aquarium, I knew it was going to happen. It was just a matter of time. So it makes that predictable to some extent.
Joe, this is Matt. With all the bait in the harbor, which has been massive for like the last week and a half at least, which is more the baby bunker sizes. Yep. Do they have a fractional impact that the larger mature bunker do? Because I mean, we see the large bunker starting in, when they fly over my house with an osprey with one in their mouth and, St. Patrick's Day and beyond, the game is on. And it's funny because in the last probably 2 weeks, the amount of baby bunker that we've seen inside a cove, inside a short country, inside of the East Basin has been, massive. And more than we have seen in the last number of years, which is a great thing for us fishermen. But, what does it do to the water quality? Is it just a fraction of the amount that the larger mature ones?
Well, it does several things. It can remove some of the oxygen from the water. But it'd also be interesting to see if they have an impact, if they're dying, if they have an impact on phosphates. And if you're a real diehard fisherman, you can smell menhaden.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
If you've been on the water, and you can, I can usually smell them before I see them breaking the surface.
Yeah.
And it's a very oily fish, and as such, it's got to have some impact on the water quality. I don't think it's ever been studied. And Brittany, I don't mean to put that pressure on you.
Well, hey, Joe, well, you're right about the odor, and that is the polyunsaturation of the menhaden oil certainly consumes a lot of oxygen when it gets oxidized. Yeah, absolutely. Different than saturated fats or saturated oils. Polyunsaturates, when they start oxidizing, they consume an awful lot of oxygen.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it gets interesting. And God bless Dick Harris and I used to go around about this because he'd do water sampling during the morning and get crude oxygen levels, and there'd be big schools of menhaden. And at night, I had the 24-hour monitoring with the MySound probe, and I was getting 1, 2, and sometimes 0 parts per million. And that the fish would die at night. And I kept saying to Dick, we're getting fish kills at night. And this is what Brittany's equipment has shown over and over and over again, that at oxygen tanks at night. And it tanks even more if you have large schools of fish in the area. And the other thing it's somewhat refreshing is the fouling that their equipment gets, because that's telling you the harbor is full of life. As much as a pain in the gluteus maximus that it is to anybody running equipment like this, because you have polyps on it, you have barnacles on it, you have slipper shells that attach to it. I mean, it's amazing what you can find encrusted on these things in a period of 2 to 3 weeks. And it hits, back in my day, it usually started in late May and it ran until the end of August. And Brittany, did you find that this year too?
Yes, definitely. We do see the fouling start to not be as terrible starting in September once the temperatures start to cool down and stuff. But yeah, in May through end of August, where we will ramp up our visits and we'll do 2 to 3 week visits just to
Right.
keep track of everything. Yeah.
Any other questions while we've got these experts? Excellent. John?
Yeah, I have a
Thank you.
question. The extremes of dissolved oxygen that Brittany mentions, does USGS have an idea what causes this? These extremes fluctuations?
The extreme fluctuations that we saw this past summer, we do think it was related to the high temperatures, that the constant high temperatures that we were seeing in July, and the drought conditions, the lack of rainfall, and the primary productivity during the day and the respiration at night. I think that it's also related to a lot of the diurnal and the tidal cycles too. We do tend to see the DO is lower during low tide, as well as even the night too. So there were a lot that were relating to those extreme fluctuations that we saw this summer.
Okay.
Are there any more questions?
Dennis, do you mind?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Brittany, do you have a more general presentation about the goals of your overall study? Did you share that with us before, or with me once before?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. I just did a presentation yesterday on the entire study where I talked about not just the Norwalk, but all 4 of the embayments. Yep.
And the basic goals of it, and the how you'll use the data. I think we talked about that in Southport, but could you send us a link to that, or could you share that with us?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I believe that's totally fine, for sure.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions for Brittany? Brittany, I thank you for your very informative presentation. It's very interesting.
Thank you for
And
that.
Joe, I
Thank you,
thank
Brittany.
for putting this all together and having the commission take a look at it. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll resume the agenda this evening. Is everybody back on board? Okay. I guess we have plans and recommendations. Jeff Mangel?
Yeah, so plans and recommendations. So I did interact with the city's attorney. So I am in the process of going through that email. It was pretty pointed. They have not contacted Stanford's Mr. Fideli. Jeff, as you know and have seen that. So I need to rethink how I'm presenting this to the attorneys. I don't think that we need to wait for them. This is for the recommendation for a fee, a maintenance fee. So I believe that we will need to take a vote on that next month to pass that to the city, and then probably have a public hearing. I'm sure that would happen, and then try to move that forward. I also want to discuss just slightly the work that was done and the quotation that was done by I think it was C-Flex for the floating docks. That would be a solution over on the just south of the Vets Park city docks. So those would solve a lot of issues with tying up, bow stern mooring, and would provide actually more opportunity for mooring. That's about 25,000 if I remember right for 2 docks. That was just the anchoring system though. So the docks and the moorings themselves, or the mushrooms themselves, would be additional. but that's an extreme. So we may be able to tone that down a little bit.
So Jeff, did these you use a mushroom or a screw-in anchor?
It could be either. You just have to be certified to do that, and it's an online course that is free, and anybody could do it. So we can all do that. A lot of times they will dive. They have the C-Flex system. It's been in use over 40 years in some locations and never had a failure.
Jeff, I have a question on the city moorings. I know we increased the per foot fee.
Yes, sir.
Moved it here. Is that approved by the city?
That was approved with the city. That went to council, common council. They voted to approve.
Okay,
So that
we can
starts
get the-
January 1, 2023.
Well, I want to get the information to online mooring so they can be prepared for January.
That'd be great. That's $5 a foot now.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Anything else, Jeff, on
That's it. That's all I have.
newsletter or website? Al Kibbe?
No report.
Water quality, Joe, do you want to have anything else to report?
Yeah, I'll just toss out where we are right now. The surface water temperature has dropped from 79 degrees down to 67 degrees today. That's just this month alone. And that's a pretty significant drop. And that's at the aquarium. And the bottom is about the same. The dissolved oxygen levels, the dissolved oxygen before September 16th went below 3 parts per million quite frequently, but after September 17th, it's remained above 4 parts per million. So the cooling of the water has significantly helped the oxygen levels, even though we do have nice schools of bunker that are in the area.
Excuse me,
the
there's some
surface
background.
field-
I was wondering, Dennis, but there's some background noise somewhere. You know, it's interfering with the.
I have no idea where it's coming from.
Yeah, I don't know who's. Maybe we can mute our mics or something. I don't know. There's.
Yeah, I hear it too, John.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if they're going to be recording this or what, but anyway, all right.
And the surface dissolved oxygen did have 6 occurrences below 3 parts per million in this month, but not after September 17th, when it was almost always above 4 parts per million. So that's why the bunker are here. They're happy, they're getting oxygen, and life is good. And just another note, if you take a look at Brittany's data on the surface and bottom turbidity, you'll see a pretty consistent pattern with very short duration spikes. Now, what causes that spikes, I have no idea. And it would require eyes on where the monitors are to see if it's vessels or if it's, I don't think it's changing tides or other activity that's on the water. But it's worth taking a look at, especially with the Department of Transportation's insistence on turbidity as a determination of the water quality for their work. And that's it. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you, Joe. We have public comment. Is there anyone here for to say?
Dennis, I have some new business. I have some new business before we move on.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Jeff, yeah, as Jeff let us know last month, we were selected, our grant was selected for the street end, the harbor access. So last week we had Jeff and I sat down with the Parks Department and DPW to try to figure out the roles and responsibilities, how we're going to move this forward. So we won't, the grant money won't actually be available till after the board meeting. I believe it's the end of October 28th or something like that. So, we're still a month and a half away, at least from getting the money. So then we had to determine, how this is going about. So the Parks Department, we discussed with the Parks Department and DPW. Park was decided that the Parks Department would be the lead department for this project. Somebody has to, the money, forget it, there was a lot of talk about who gets the money, who authorizes the money, how does it get distributed to the consultant that we ended up hiring. So there's a lot of things that'll have to be figured out with that because it's a reimbursable and not a full grant. But what we do want to get going at this point is to get the RFP together so that when the money is available and the right part of the city has been authorized to select a contractor, that we can put an RFP out on the street and get this thing rolling. So I'll be leading it up as the sort of the project manager on behalf of the Harbor Commission. And we can, this is the plan I'm going to put forward with the Parks Department as the lead agency. I'll be writing the technical scope of work that will be, what we will be asking the consultant to do and what the deliverables will be, what their tasks will be, and that will get put into the RFP, the request for proposal format that the city uses with all their boilerplates that can be put out on the street and awarded to a consultant. We discussed having it done so that we will just award and fund the first phase, the first task, which will be for the $44,000, but we will spell out to some degree what the phase 2 tasks will be, which will be actually, doing the plans and the final plans for solicitation, and which we will need to get, because we'll have to go back to the Port Authority to get the money to actually fully implement whatever we decide to do. So what we want to do is have it, we're basically hiring somebody to do a study, and we will write the contract in such a way that if we get awarded more money to do final plan specs and estimates, that we will be able to, and we like the consultant, that we would be able to go and give them a change order and not have to go back to the solicitation process for that. So that's how we plan to move forward for that. The Parks Department asked me to have have all this memorialized in our minutes. So I'm going to make a motion that that the Parks Department will be the lead city department for this, for administering the grant money and the hiring of the consultant, and that I'll be the project manager for that. That's my motion.
I second. It's Lori.
All in favor?
No, Chris, can I ask you a question on the street? Now, there are certain number of street ends that were identified for modification. Are you going to be looking at all of them, or are you going to pick out a cadre of street ends that you're going to focus on instead of doing all of them?
We went back and forth a little with that. I think there's something like 12 or 16 that were identified overall. We really want to focus in on about 5. That was how much work we do on the big list before we focus in on the smaller list. That'll depend on time and budget. The Port Authority kind of wanted us to look a little bit wider, but we don't want to use a lot of time and money to look at these other ones. Although what the consultant will do on another level, I think we as the commission should keep the long list and go to and work with the city, whether it's just for signage that these locations are public access, working with the DPW to have them cleaned up, because street ends, garbage gets dumped, or even if it's a nice neighborhood, you still get stuff floating in, and at the water line you have a lot of junk. So to have them cleaned up, labeled, marked, accessible, have it part of an overall promotion we do on, have it promoting the harbor access, whether it's places we do improvements, which would be the racks for kayaks or dinghies, or even possibly a floating dock if we can work through the feasibility that this study, a lot of the study is for the feasibility of that. It's not just to have somebody tell us, we could take $44,000 and go build a bunch of racks and benches and not hire a consultant to do that. There's some additional stuff that we want to look at. So, so there is the longer list, but we really want to focus the money on the short list.
Well, no, I mean, I certainly agree with that tack. As I said, you go with your best foot forward, because if it becomes all inclusive, nothing will get done.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And there's one other separate issue entirely. So last year, sometime I brought this up, that it would be great if we could get the state ship, the state tall ship, the Amistad, to come to Norwalk Harbor. And now that I have kids in the public schools, they do a fantastic educational program as well. That's part of what they do when they visit. So I just wanted to find out what the steps were to do this. On their website, I filled in the contact us thing, and immediately, like within, I did it at 10 o'clock at night. By 8 o'clock in the morning, I had heard back from 2 different people within the organization. They seemed really interested in having it done. One of the fellows is a local resident, and he's aware of some of the issues, with what's prevented it from happening in the past, which is namely, what's the depth at the city docks themselves, at the Vets Park dock, the visitors dock, and they were really leery of bringing it in until they had more information about what was there in terms of depth. So my request is, I'd like to get a copy of the plans for the reconstruction at Vets Park, because that should have some good a depth survey involved in that. And I went down there last weekend just with a weighted string, and at the edge of the dock, it's about 6.5, 7 feet there. The Amistad draws 10 feet.
Well, there's a slope.
There's a slope there, so what I couldn't determine, it's a 20-foot beam too. So the keel is going to be 10 feet off the dock. So what's the depth at 10 feet off the dock? And the other thing is the other thing is having some type of temporary dock in between it to push it out even further. If it has, there's about 25 to 30 feet between the dock and the federal channel. So, if we actually had to push it out into the federal channel, that would have a bunch of knock-on effects of having to get Coast Guard approval, but not that any of that can't be done or shouldn't be done. My first.
That vessel was here before, wasn't it, Chris? Wasn't it stationed out on the dock before?
Not in a long time. I'm not sure when it was.
Oh, that's where they had to drop spuds down. Is that?
Perhaps. I don't know. I don't know what they did the last time it was here. I think it was. I moved to Norwalk 10 years ago today. So it hasn't been done.
There's a vessel similar to that came in the dock that stabilized themselves by dropping spuds down in that area.
It was a tall ship, John, at the Oyster Festival years ago.
Right. Okay. Years ago. Yeah.
Many years ago.
Chris, I'm good friends with the co-director of Amistad Project, and so we've had a lot of conversations here.
Yeah, we talked about it
with the harbor master, and last year
Robin?
Actually. Was that?
Is this Robin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert Hogan.
I spoke to him.
Were you pardon?
He called me. I've spoken with him. I spoke with him last week.
Well, good. I guess we've talked with. I know he's talked with Bruce about the feasibility of this. So.
Yeah. So I'd like to start. First identify really what is out there, and so I don't know who has the plans from when the dock was redone. That was only 4 or 5 years ago, right? So. John,
you might start with recreation and parks.
Well, I think we have some stuff from the.
I'm starting here. I mean, we were certainly part of it, so,
You could have a hydrologic survey done pretty inexpensively of just what the depths are offshore there.
well, well, it's not inexpensive. It's a couple grand, to get somebody out to do that. So my first request is we must have reviewed them and been part of the development of the plans for those docks. So, if Jeff or John or who was ever around 5 or 6 years ago and that was done, that would be a great help. The other thing is I will probably go out there in a boat and, and do some depth soundings myself, just to try to determine what the depth is, 10 feet out, 10 feet off, 20 feet off. And then see where we can go from there, see what we have to determine what we have.
Well, I'm sure we have data from, 7, 8 years ago. And whether that's still, if you're looking for a precise measurement, obviously it would be real time determination that you're gonna have to do.
Well, we'll see what they want. I mean, if we can, look what we had, what was the post-construction survey and do some field verification of that, will that be good enough? Will that satisfy what they need? A full depth survey is a couple grand. I mean, that's what we had to pay when we did the post dredging survey at our marina. It's not, just to mobilize somebody out there's, fair amount.
All right.
All right, that I just wanted to bring that up and try to see if anybody had those plans.
Okay, thanks, Chris. My public comment, I don't believe there's anyone here from the public. I don't see anyone.
I just have one bit, and I for Dennis and maybe Amelia. And I had a meeting with the Recreation and Parks a couple of weeks ago, and subsequently we discovered that the Recreation and Parks Director is an ex officio member of our commission, not a voting member, and we'd kind of agreed that we would. I think you were involved, Dennis, too, in sending the meeting notification and agendas to the Recreation and Parks Director, so that perhaps we might be able to have him join us occasionally, particularly when there are agenda items that reflect Harbor Commission and Recreation and Parks joint interests. And I couldn't look at the distribution of the link to this meeting, and also of the how the agendas were sent, because I could just see that I got them. That's a question I had. I'm sorry to take the meeting to do that. I'm done.
Okay. Approval of minutes of August, the amended minutes of August 24th, 2022. John?
I got a bunch of comments. I implemented them. I have to post them. I have to post them on the website, but I don't know if anybody else has any comments.
No, I mean, the version that I looked at, I had no problem with. I just sent my comments in.
Yeah, I sent mine in too. Do you revise? You have a spot that revises them, that we can look at them? You send it back.
I can resend them out. I can resend them out, the latest revision.
This way, everyone has an opportunity to look at the revised document, and then we can approve it. But is there a motion to accept the amended minutes of?
I can make that motion, Dennis.
Yeah,
based on John's responses.
Second, yeah, because I saw your comments then, and then and my comments. Whatever I saw, I certainly had no problem with those as amended.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Then I'll take an adjournment. Who wants to make an adjournment?
Motion Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we're all in favor.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you
great
very
night.
much.
Thanks all. Good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thanks, Matt.
Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Yeah.